by the super-rich slave owners like Pliny and Seneca. But now I want to turn to the question of Christmas. What relation, if any, does Saturnalia have on the establishment of Christmas? After all, most Christians celebrate it on December 25th. The Romans, on the other hand, celebrated Saturnalia between December 17th and 23rd. And there's some evidence that December 25th, the winter solstice according to the Julian calendar, was marked as the feast and birthday of the sun god Sol Invictus. The dates seem way too convenient to be a coincidence. Well, there are two prevailing and possibly overlapping theories, the Christianization theory and the calculation theory. The Christianization theory goes that Christian authorities picked December 25th specifically to convert a season of pagan holidays into Christian holidays. People already were celebrating in late December, and these cultural habits are too deeply entrenched to change that easily. So let's slap a new Christian name on it. The Christianization theory is certainly possible. Later sources such as Pope Gregory the Great encouraged the Christian authorities to convert pagan temples into churches and pagan holidays into Christian holidays. The problem is, when it comes to Christmas, this theory is based on educated conjecture, not direct evidence. No Christian source from the Roman period specifically mentions Christianizing December 25th for the purpose of celebrating Jesus' birth. Only hundreds of years later, in the early 12th century, do we get the first explicit reference to Christianizing December 25th. This comes from a Syriac writer named Dionysius Barsalibi. Plus, the December 25th date for Sol Invictus is based on only one source. It comes from a Christian calendar dating to 354, which makes a passing reference to December 25th being the birthday of Sol Invictus. This is one single source, written decades after when the Sol Invictus birthday was supposedly instituted. Compare this to my earlier list of Saturnalia sources. Bunches and bunches of ancient texts from contemporaries who actually celebrated Saturnalia themselves. These include detailed descriptions of the gifts that were given and the games that were played. We don't have anything approaching that level of detail for the December 25th Sol Invictus festival. That's not to deny that pagans were celebrating on this day. I'm sure that they were, but according to the ancient historian Philip Nothaft, the lack of evidence raises the question whether the birthday of Sol Invictus celebrations on December 25th were really so ancient, widespread, and momentous as to exert a strong influence on Christian communities. So I'd say that it's plausible that there was some religious competition over converting celebrations of December 25th to be specifically Christian celebrations, but the evidence isn't as concrete as many would lead you to believe. Again, educated conjecture, not direct evidence. This leads us to the second prevailing theory, the calculation theory, which hypothesizes that many early Christians believed Jesus was conceived and crucified on the same day, March 25th or April 6th, depending on how you calculate it. Therefore, they dated Jesus' birth to December 25th or January 6th because these dates are exactly 9 months later. I'm drawing a lot of this research from two peer-reviewed articles by scholars of early Christianity, which cover the calculation theory pretty thoroughly, so I'd really recommend you read them to get the full picture. Links are in the description below. I cover this in another video too if you want to check it out. This theory may sound a bit weird, but a lot of our Christian sources back it up. A 4th century Christian text called On Solstices and Equinoxes says, "Therefore our Lord was conceived on March 25th, which is the day of the Passion of the Lord and of his conception." The Gospels say nothing about when Jesus was born, but they do mention when he died, on or near the Passover during the spring. Christians spent a ton of time trying to calculate the exact date, even though it's probably impossible to figure that out. And two dates seem to pop up again and again, March 25th and April 6th. Julius Africanus, a 3rd century Christian historian, seems to have dated Jesus' conception to March 25th. Same with Hippolytus, another Christian chronographer writing around the same time, but other Christians calculated it to April 6th. I don't think it's a coincidence that these two dates come exactly 9 months after the two dominant dates that Christians calculated as his crucifixion. January 6th was celebrated mostly in Egypt and Asia, but eventually lost out to December 25th in popularity. But even to this day, the Armenian Orthodox Church continues to celebrate on January 6th. I'm convinced by the calculation theory because it explains why two different dates, December 25th and January 6th, became the two dominant dates. The January 6th date seems so much more random without this explanation, because it's nowhere near the Saturnalia or Sol Invictus festivals to blame any attempt to Christianize those holidays. But I do think there may be some overlap between these two theories. Namely, Christians do seem to think equinoxes and solstices were involved somehow with Jesus' birth and death. According to the Roman Julian calendar, December 25th was the winter solstice. According to that same calendar, March 25th was the spring equinox. It's possible that December 25th won out over January 6th because Christians were trying to align Jesus' death and birth with days that were already widely recognized and celebrated as important. In fact, the Sol Invictus festival probably did the same thing. The cult of Sol Invictus was popular among Roman emperors, such as Aurelian, and the ancient historian Gaston Halsberg hypothesizes that the Romans saw this as the sun's birthday because it was one of the most dramatic moments in the sun's course. It makes a lot of sense to put a solar holiday on the shortest day of the year when every following day would be longer and longer. So I would modify the Christianization theory as an attempt to ascribe Christian significance to the winter solstice, rather than an attempt to specifically Christianize Saturnalia or Sol Invictus. Whether you were worshipping Saturn, Sol, or Jesus though, there was a deeply entrenched habit to celebrate something in late December, and that habit didn't simply die off. Macrobius was writing in the 5th century CE, well into the Christian period when December 25th was becoming the most popular day to celebrate Christmas. So we can reconstruct December in the late Roman Empire as a time of multiple festivals, which possibly involves some level of religious syncretism and competition around the winter solstice. All of my sources, both primary and secondary sources, are in the description below. I invite you to check my research, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.